Some experiments were never meant to succeed. They were meant to answer a question. And once that question was answered, the experiment disappeared. Not because it failed, but because the result was unacceptable. Most people assume forbidden experiments are violent. They imagine explosions, screams, obvious cruelty. But the most disturbing experiments were quiet, clean rooms, calm voices, clipboards, and notes. Nothing looked wrong until years later. One of the most unsettling truths about human experimentation is this. Many experiments were stopped not because they were unethical, but because they worked. One such case involved sensory deprivation. In the 1950s, researchers believed that removing external stimuli would calm the mind. They were wrong. Subjects were placed in soundproof rooms. No light, no sound, no sense of time. At first, participants relaxed. Then something shifted. Within hours, many reported hearing voices. Not memories, not imagination, distinct voices. Some described shapes forming behind their eyes. Others felt the presence of someone else in the room, even when they were alone. The experiment ended early, not because participants begged to leave, but because researchers noticed something alarming. When subjects returned to normal environments, some never fully came back. They reacted slowly. They questioned reality. They described the world as less real than the space they had been in. The results were classified. Another experiment focused on obedience. Researchers wanted to know how far a person would go if instructed by authority. Participants were told to administer electric shocks. They weren't real, but the belief was. As authority figures calmly instructed them to continue, most participants obeyed, even when they believed they were hurting someone. The experiment revealed something disturbing. People didn't need to be forced. They just needed permission. The findings were published, then quietly restricted, not because they shocked the public, but because they revealed how easily ordinary people could be controlled. Other experiments explored memory, specifically false memory implantation. Subjects were told stories about their childhood, events that never happened. Over time, many began to remember them, not vaguely, vividly. They described emotions, sensations, details that were never suggested. Researchers proved memory could be rewritten, not erased, replaced. The implications were enormous. If memory could be altered so easily, what did that say about identity? Funding was reduced, public discussion stopped. Then there were experiments involving isolation and time distortion. Participants were placed underground for weeks. No clocks, no sunlight. Some emerged believing only days had passed. Others believed months were gone. Their internal sense of time collapsed. When they returned, many struggled to reintegrate. They couldn't sleep normally. They described feeling detached from reality, as if time outside the experiment moved incorrectly. These experiments didn't break the body. They broke continuity. Some experiments were even more subtle. Researchers studied how people reacted when reality behaved incorrectly. Doors that led nowhere, rooms that subtly changed shape, lighting that shifted without cause. Participants became anxious, not because something was wrong, but because nothing made sense. The mind depends on consistency. Remove it and stress skyrockets. Some participants developed long-term anxiety. Others reported recurring dreams of the experiment environment. The research was shelved. Another forbidden line of research involved group behavior under misinformation. Participants were placed in controlled environments. They were fed false news, contradictory facts, gradually changing narratives. Researchers observed how quickly people adjusted, how fast they defended incorrect beliefs, how aggressively they rejected correction. The conclusion was simple and dangerous. Reality could be reshaped without force, only repetition. The research was never fully published because it worked too well. There were also experiments involving children, not violent, not invasive, just observation. Children were placed in environments with subtle emotional manipulation, tone changes, reward shifts, withholding attention. Researchers learned how quickly emotional dependence formed, how behavior could be shaped invisibly. When ethical boards intervened, the data was already collected. The findings were locked away, but the methods lived on, used quietly in marketing, in media, in digital design. Some experiments focused on perception. Subjects were shown images too fast to consciously process, faces, symbols, threat cues. Even though participants didn't remember seeing them, their behavior changed. Stress increased, decision-making shifted, fear responses activated, the mind reacted before awareness. These experiments confirmed something unsettling. You don't need to know you're being influenced. And then there were experiments that crossed a line, attempts to fragment identity, to create dissociation deliberately. Subjects were exposed to conflicting instructions, contradictory authority figures, opposing emotional feedback. Some participants developed fractured responses, different reactions depending on context, not multiple personalities, but unstable identity. The experiment was terminated. Records were sealed. Officially, these studies no longer exist, but their legacy does, because modern systems don't need laboratories. They need platforms, algorithms, feedback loops. What was once tested in controlled rooms now happens quietly at scale, and that's why these experiments were forbidden. Not because they were cruel, but because they revealed how fragile human perception is, how easily reality can be shaped, how little force is required. Most people assume danger looks obvious, but the most dangerous knowledge looks boring. Charts, statistics, behavioral shifts. And once you understand how the mind adapts, you can't unlearn it. These experiments didn't disappear because they failed. They disappeared because they succeeded. And some knowledge, once proven, is too dangerous to be public.